Welcome to Nintendo Ninja News. I'm your host, Chris Tysis, and I am autistic. I self-identify as that. Um, this might be a surprise to some people. Some people in the audience watching might be thinking, I kind of had a pretty bit of a hunch about it. And I've probably known for the last 2 years about it. So I've been doing extensive research into it, research papers and, YouTube videos and websites and talking to other people and stuff like that. So I guess it became my special interest. Um, and I wanted to sort of reveal it at some point when I felt like I was ready, because it wasn't like I was holding back like a, you know, felt like I was holding back something, and I wanted to be, I've always been upfront and honest with people here on Nintendo Ninja News. And, I felt like you don't have to know about these things, but I think it would um, create better understanding about, sometimes you might see me a little bit quirky during videos, or I might get a little too upset during streams or stuff like that. I'm moving around, but some of you are like, wow, Chris, you've always been a bit quirky and a bit odd. Um, so That's been like that. I did write something on social media that I'm just going to get up now, and I'll put it in the pinned comment. The link to the website, coffee.com, and it's just me, just talking about stuff about my own experiences, special interests, and yes, trains, the most stereotypical thing, Thomas the Tank Engine, and Lego, and video games, and writing, those sort of special interests, past and present. And, I've always had issues with things like, eye contact and reading body language. I was, had major problems with food, with texture, and the taste of it, and going to hospital 3 times because of it. Um, Struggling with education, workplace, everyday life. Um, and I feel, well, I don't know if you feel silly, but it's a bit like it took me 38 years to figure this out. But then again, you can say, no one else told me for decades. And, I have a bit of a neglectful family, okay, very much of a neglectful family, who just wasn't there for me. So I had to figure out everything myself. And I'll definitely put the pinned comment on there for those. I guess you can pause the video and read this if you like. Um, but yeah, I had to, really research and understand it. And it was just like, when you sort of have like a life mystery and you're trying to solve it, and then all of a sudden it just all clicks and everything starts to fall into place and go, oh, you got to be shitting me. It was this after all this time? It wasn't like 15 individual problems that I have. Um, and that was, sort of difficult. There was times like, oh, am I or am I not? The whole imposter syndrome. And, when I told a few people about my autism, um, no one was surprised. They were like, oh, yeah, I already thought you were, or I kind of suspected it, or yeah, that kind of makes a whole lot of sense to no shit, you are. So I guess what we call masking, pretending to be a normal human being, was not as good as I thought it would be. And monotone voice and all that sort of stuff. All the other telltime times? Yeah, about that sort of thing. So you can tell it's a bit of a read, but after a couple of years of research and decades of life, and you got a few things to say, is what I say. And it's going to be a challenge in life for this. Let me just get back to my little screen. But yeah, it's kind of a bit. I feel a bit nervous talking about this, and but I thought that it might help the audience know that I sort of identify as self-diagnosed. I don't know what the term is, but it's pretty obvious I have autism for it. So, but it's nice to know that I'm not a complete weirdo. There's a name for being a complete weirdo and odd. And some days I like having it, and there are other days where I wish I was normal. That I could make friends easier and be in relationships easier. And you know, sometimes you love yourself, and sometimes you kind of hate yourself. Um, you know, you know, Imagine hating yourself for being who you are. It kind of sucks, eh? But it is what it is, and the self-esteem is slowly moving up, and I'm working on health problems and issues like that, and it hasn't been a great year with Luxray surgery, and not going to get it switched to at launch, so it's already a pretty shit year. So I guess it's in football terms, we're not winning a premiership this year. It's not probably going to be a great year unless we have the biggest second 6-month turnaround in my life. But I feel like this is going to be just a building, rebuilding season for me. There's maybe a few cool things that will happen in the second half of the year, but we'll see how it goes, and I'm sure that I will enjoy certain things and you know push on with life, but we'll take it a day at a time. So just have a look at the thing that I wrote, and I have probably nothing else to say because I'm probably starting to ramble. And for some of you, you've been used to that for the past 10 years, and you probably know now why that happens, and the hand movements and stuff like that. So that is my news. Um, you know, some people will be accepting, others won't really care. But I thought that it would be nice to is that table crooked behind me? Probably the camera. But anyway, getting sidetracked. That's all I've got to say. So I guess that's it for me, and I shall see you later on.